Hey, this is Dave from Cheap Wine Finder again for another wine review for a wine we stuck on the cheapwinefinder.com website. Again, and this time that's $8.99 Zinfandel. It's the Gnarly Head Old Vines Lodi Zinfandel 2018. And I thought we'd get under $10 because, people have been out of work for a while and, you got to stretch your money. And even if things aren't getting too tight yet, there's no really need to be spending too much when you don't have to. And that's where a wine like the Gnarly Head Old Vine Zinfandel comes in because it is a perennial. I think this is a wine that had been around since 2004. And Delicato Family Vineyards is who makes this wine, and they've been around since 24. And how many thousands of acres of vineyards they have? They're the sixth largest winery in the United States, and they're responsible for a lot of wines. There's a bunch of wines you can get at Trader Joe's that I'm pretty sure they make. I'm not positive, and I won't say which ones they are because, I don't know for sure, but I think, like the Moon X wines and those type of things, they have a hand in there somewhere, I believe. Don't quote me, but Manica is where those wines are out of, and Manica is where, and Delicato Family Vineyards is too. So, sometimes you can put two and two together. And this is, like I said, this is one of those wines that you can count on. If you're going to a bring your own bottle barbecue joint and you forget to bring a bottle and you jump in the local liquor store or something, you don't know any of the brands, you can count on this to do the job. It's going to be not expensive. It's going to be quality wine. It's going to be from great grapes. And we'll go over that in a little bit. So this is a kind of a nice wine you can count on, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm going to take a sip because I like Zinfandel. It's one of my favorites. Yeah, there's a nice richness to it for a wine that I found for under $10. I think $8.99. It might have been on sale, maybe not. I'm not sure. But that's not a bad price for a single AVA wine. And if you're going to get a Zinfandel, Lodi is as good as any place in my book. There's some high end Zinfandel producers out there from fancy places, but I kind of like Lodi. I mean, I like the Ridges of the world too. They're really good, but Lodi also does it for me. So there's that, and it's got a great nose to it. It's kind of like a deep and dark and varied nose, and the flavors. It used to be inexpensive. Zinfandels were kind of America's answers to the wild and woolly Shirazes from Australia. They've since pulled back, and the old vine thing is they're kind of taking that to heart. So I'll explain a little bit about the old vine, what that's all about. Because, why is old good? And there's one adage for grapes that is kind of universal, is that grapevines have to struggle to make great wine grapes. You need to put them in places where they just get enough water. Just the moisture is at just the minimum of what they need, and they don't need great soil. Most of the great vineyards of the world are rock-strewn. You always hear, what kind of rock is there? It's like in Burgundy, it's the granite and the slate and Moselle, and every place has their own type of rocky soil, and usually rocky soil is not where you do crops. Farmers aren't putting their plows through that. So it's the kind of often, or almost always, the vineyards are in places where you can't really cultivate other crops. So like the worst ground is the best ground. And an old vine, and an old vine is anywhere, there's no rule on what an old vine is. In this Gnarly Head Old Vine Zinfandel from Lodi, I think there's some over 80-year-old grapes in there, but usually it's like 35 and up. Because after 35 years, the yield starts to go down in these grapes or these vines. And that's the whole thing about it. And as they age, all the little, the tunnels inside there that brings the moisture and the nutrients to the grapes inside, they collapse and the new ones are formed, and it just takes harder and harder for these grapes to give the nutrient and the moisture to the grapes, and that is what bad ground does. So even if they're not on particularly bad ground, even if the location wasn't, when it first started out, anything special, well, now it is. It's like the tortoise and the hare. These might not have been the greatest vineyards brand new, like in 1938 or whatever they planted them, but now they're like national treasures. You want those grapes. They have qualities that you can only get through age, and that's a kind of a pretty awesome thing, especially in a wine you're getting for under $10. I'm going to take another sip because I talk too much, and I now need to wet my whistle. And that's another thing I'm going to bring up a little bit here. It's about, picking out cheap wine, how to get the best cheap wines. And it's not like it used to be. Like you used to go, get something from Chile or get something from Argentina or get something from South Africa. It's not really, doesn't work that much that way anymore because they don't really want to be your cheap wine supplier. Any place that has to ship it and add an importer into the mix, importers need their money, shipments take their money, it's, the California people have to ship their wine, but, you add on ocean traffic, and sometimes long distances and, then you get import fees and there's a lot of, you got to come in way cheaper just to, compete with the California and Washington State and the Oregon stuff. So they don't really want to be necessarily your cheap wine provider. But one thing you can do is like find out, like you like a Sauvignon Blanc and you want a cheap Sauvignon Blanc. Well, often, wineries and vineyards grow more grapes and they produce more wine than they can sell under their own name. So they'll sell things off. And there are people out there who buy leftover wines from this winery, that winery, and this winery and put them together. They get it at semi-bargain prices. They add them together and it pass the savings on to you. And it doesn't have, you don't know, exactly where they came from, but that's where this thing is. Like if you want a Sauvignon Blanc and you want something under $10, look at New Zealand. I mean, they know what they're doing with Sauvignon Blanc. Whoever they're buying from, this guy who's buying from maybe 4 different wineries to put it together and blended them for your wine, he's picking 4 really good wineries. And like, you want a Garnacha, you get it from East Spain. I mean, they have tons of it there. You get a cheap one there, you can get a great cheap one there. The high-end ones don't cost that much. If you want a Zinfandel, look at Lodi. I mean, they've been making Lodi and Zinfandel for over 100 years. They know what they're doing. There's tons of great vineyards. There's tons of great wineries. What's left over, and they can get really good wines. So kind of go, who is really good at making this type of what area is good at making this? Because there's got to be leftover grapes from wineries, from leftover wine that can trickle down to other brands. And they kind of do. Because one of the weird things about wine is there is no vineyard that makes $5 wines or actually $2 Chuck. But they're separate. What they do there, their practices are different than everybody else. They have their own vineyard for $2 Chuck. But most vineyards, like the same vineyard that makes wine that are grapes that go to $20, $25 wines, are the same ones that are making or selling the grapes to $10 wines. I mean, there isn't, the difference isn't the grapes, it's how it's produced. There's, a $25 wine is a more involved, the production process, and the $10 wine's quicker and easier. It comes together. It's light and easier usually. So it's production style that makes the difference between 20 and 25, not the grapes. The grapes, for the most part, are exactly the same. And then you get, like I said, you get under $10 a lot. There's people who are buying leftovers, and it's the exact same stuff. The grapes are going elsewhere. The aging might be different, but that's about it. So always figure out, I want a sparkling wine. Where do I go for really good sparkling wine? And, Cava, they make a lot of Cava. The Prosecco, they make tons of Prosecco. You can get a really good and expensive Prosecco because there are people that will sell you, the negotiants who will buy it left over from somebody and sell it to you. It's the exact same wine, or maybe a blend of a couple of different ones from other people. But, it's still, if you get a blend of wine from 3 different really quality producers, does it put them together, make them worse? Nah, it makes them good. So that's my tip for the day. And that's that. So till next time, I think we're going to have more coming up. Things are easing up a little bit where you can get in the stores, and still not safe, but we'll keep this going. I think so. I kind of spread things out because it was kind of getting hard to get into places. But now I think I can, keep a steady supply of wine on hand so we can keep this rolling. And I'll talk to you again in a little bit. Adios from me. This is Dave, over and out, and I'll talk to you in a day or two.